Your brain weighs 3 pounds and sits in darkness, yet somehow it's reading this sentence right now. Beneath your feet, an organism spans miles underground, moving resources and information without a single thought. These two things shouldn't have anything in common, but they're running the same playbook. Look at an MRI scan of your brain's connections. Now look at time-lapse footage of fungal growth spreading through soil. They're identical. Dense clusters linked by highways. Local neighborhoods connected to distant hubs. The same branching patterns repeated at different scales. This isn't a coincidence. When nature finds an answer to complexity that actually works, it doesn't patent it. It copies and pastes across completely different life forms. The human brain shuttles electrical signals between 86 billion neurons. Fungal mycelium transports nutrients, water, and chemical messages through microscopic tubes that can stretch for kilometers. Different cargo, different materials, but the core problem is exactly the same. How do you move limited resources through a massive, constantly changing environment without burning energy on dead ends? Both systems landed on the same solution independently, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you want to dive deeper into how hidden patterns shape everything from forests to cities to your own thoughts, hit subscribe. We're pulling back the curtain on systems that have been running the show without you noticing. In 2010, researchers placed a slime mold in a petri dish. They arranged oat flakes around it to match the locations of major cities around Tokyo. The slime mold, which has no brain whatsoever, grew a network connecting those food sources. When they compared it to Tokyo's actual rail system, designed by teams of engineers over decades, the patterns were nearly identical. Same efficiency, same redundancy, same fault tolerance. The slime mold found that solution in hours using nothing but local rules. Grow toward food, abandon paths that don't pay off, strengthen routes that carry the most flow. Your neurons follow a similar script. When two brain cells fire together repeatedly, the connection between them gets stronger. Use a pathway constantly and it becomes a superhighway. Let it sit idle and it withers. No central command is making these decisions. Each connection simply responds to its local environment. Yet somehow your brain learns languages, recognizes faces, and coordinates a body through space. Fungal networks operate underground in forests, connecting hundreds of trees in what scientists call the Wood Wide Web. A struggling seedling can receive nutrients through these fungal threads from older, healthier trees. A tree under pest attack sends chemical warnings that travel through the mycelium to neighbors, which then ramp up their own defenses. No fungus is sitting at a control panel deciding who gets what. The network itself is the decision, emerging from millions of microscopic interactions between fungal threads and their surroundings. We're obsessed with maps because they turn chaos into something our brains can handle. A subway diagram collapses thousands of possible routes into colored lines and dots. A circuit board makes sense of electrical pathways. A connectomy shows neural wiring as a comprehensible web. When we see structure hiding inside apparent randomness, our reward circuits light up. That's the same feeling you get solving a puzzle or spotting a pattern in static. Fungal network diagrams tap into that same circuit. They show that the forest floor isn't just dirt and decay. There's an organized system down there, making choices about which tree thrives and which one struggles. That revelation hits differently than learning about a beaver dam or an anthill, because this infrastructure looks disturbingly similar to the wiring inside your own skull. When your brain recognizes its own architecture in something completely alien, it triggers an uncomfortable question. If that thing looks like it's thinking, what exactly is thinking? Mycelium isn't a plant root, and fungi aren't plants at all. They're their own kingdom, closer evolutionarily to animals than to trees. Each fungal thread is called a hypha, a microscopic tube that grows at the tip, branching and splitting as it explores. Some fungal networks cover tens of acres. The armillaria fungus in Michigan's Upper Peninsula spans 37 acres and weighs hundreds of tons, making it one of the largest organisms on Earth by area. These networks aren't static. Threads are constantly growing, collapsing, fusing with other threads, and rerouting based on what they encounter. If you could watch mycelium through a microscope over days, you'd see it behaving less like a plant and more like a sprawling search algorithm, testing thousands of paths simultaneously and committing resources only to the ones that work. There's no fungal brain making these calls. Each high fall tip just follows chemical gradients. Grow toward sugars, retreat from toxins, fuse with nearby threads if they're genetically compatible. But when billions of these tips coordinate through their shared network, the whole system starts solving complex problems. It finds efficient routes between resources. It maintains backup pathways in case one gets severed. It allocates nutrients to areas that need them most. Engineers have started using fungal growth patterns as templates for designing more resilient transportation and communication networks, because the fungus somehow nails optimization without running any calculations. Your brain doesn't have a boss neuron either. For decades, scientists searched for the seat of consciousness, the command center where decisions get made and experiences get registered. They never found it. Imaging studies show that even simple tasks light up scattered regions across the brain. Memory isn't stored in one place like files in a cabinet. It's distributed across networks, reconstructed on demand from fragments held by different regions working together. When you remember your childhood home, your visual cortex reconstructs the appearance, your motor cortex recalls the feeling of walking through it, your amygdala supplies the emotional tone, and your hippocampus coordinates the reconstruction. Damage one piece and the memory degrades but doesn't vanish entirely, because the information lives in the pattern of connections, not in individual cells. Consciousness seems to work the same way. It's not located in a spot. It emerges from coordinated activity across many networks simultaneously. The default mode network handles self-referential thinking and daydreaming. The attention networks focus on external tasks. The salience network decides what's important enough to notice. These networks couple and decouple dynamically depending on what you're doing, and somehow that orchestration produces the feeling of being you. This is exactly how intelligence emerges in mycelium. No single thread understands the forest, but the patterns of flow through the whole network encode solutions to problems. Where nutrients are abundant, where threats lurk, which routes are reliable. After a stroke damages part of the brain, other regions can sometimes take over lost functions by forming new connections. This process, called neuroplasticity, happens because surviving areas start strengthening alternative pathways through repeated use. Rehabilitation works by training those backup routes until they become efficient enough to restore function. The brain routes around its own damage the same way mycelium grows around a dead patch of soil. Slime molds do this too. Cut one of their tubes and the rest of the network immediately compensates, thickening other paths to maintain connectivity. The internet was designed with the same principle in mind. Packet switching protocols mean data can take multiple routes to the same destination, so losing one node or connection doesn't crash the system. It reroutes automatically. Centralized systems look clean and efficient on paper. One command center, clear chains of authority, no redundancy wasting resources. But they fail catastrophically when that center goes down. Decentralized networks look messier. They have backup paths, overlapping functions, and what seems like wasteful duplication. But when something breaks, they degrade gracefully instead of collapsing completely. Evolution repeatedly chooses the messy option because survival beats elegance. Ant colonies make decisions collectively with no queen directing the process. Each ant follows simple local rules, based on pheromone trails and encounters with nestmates, yet the colony as a whole chooses optimal nest sites and adapts to threats. Mathematically, this process resembles neural networks. Individual ants are like neurons. Pheromones are like synaptic weights, and the colony's behavior emerges from their summed interactions. Urban street networks evolve the same way. No central planner designs a city's layout from scratch. Countless individual decisions by developers, commuters, and engineers layer on top of each other until you get a network that looks strikingly similar to neural and fungal networks. Hubs with dense connectivity, sparse long-range links between neighborhoods, and small world properties that let you get anywhere quickly despite the size. We call something intelligent when it shows structured, adaptive behavior even if there's no mind behind it. Fungal networks visibly respond to their environment in ways that look strategic. Place food sources around a mycelial network, and it thickens paths between them while pruning inefficient detours. Block a path, and it reroutes. Remove a food source, and it abandons the connection. This kind of goal-directed, efficient problem solving is what we associate with intelligence, even though no fungus is sitting there pondering options. The word intelligence is shifting in science. It used to mean human-like thought, reasoning, language, self-awareness. Now it increasingly describes any system that processes information and adapts behavior based on feedback. By that definition, mycelial networks qualify. They take in environmental data through chemical sensing, propagate that information through their structure, and adjust their architecture accordingly. It's a form of distributed computation running on biological hardware. This doesn't mean fungi have feelings or self-awareness. There's no evidence they experience anything subjectively, but they implement a type of problem solving that we'd call intelligent if we saw it in a computer program or a robot. The boundary between alive and responsive and intelligent gets blurry when you're looking at systems instead of individuals. Psilocybin, the compound in magic mushrooms, reveals something fundamental about brain networks by temporarily scrambling them. Brain imaging shows that psilocybin desynchronizes normal activity patterns, especially in the default mode network. That network usually dominates when you're not focused on external tasks. It generates your sense of self, your internal narrative, your rumination about past and future. Under psilocybin, connectivity within that network drops. At the same time, communication between regions that don't usually talk starts ramping up. The brain temporarily becomes more globally integrated and less constrained by its usual highways. This isn't adding new capabilities or information, it's changing how existing regions interact. People report that habitual thought patterns, negative self-talk, and rigid perspectives lose their grip during these experiences. That makes sense if those patterns are carved into well-traveled neural pathways, and psilocybin is temporarily weakening those paths while allowing dormant connections to activate. Entrenched routes quiet down, and the network explores alternative configurations. Some imaging studies have found that connectivity changes between certain brain regions can persist for weeks after a single psilocybin session before gradually returning toward baseline. These shifts correlate with reduced depression symptoms in controlled clinical trials, though the research is still unfolding and the mechanism isn't fully understood. Mycelium does something similar when environmental conditions shift. It explores aggressively, extending threads in multiple directions, then commits resources only to paths that yield returns. Under stable conditions, growth patterns stabilize around reliable routes. Change the environment and the network enters another exploratory phase, abandoning old paths and testing new ones. Psilocybin seems to push the human brain into that exploratory mode. Network topology determines experience, not just the raw presence of chemicals. The same neurons, temporarily rewired, produce radically different thoughts and perceptions. Network architecture shows up everywhere once you start looking. Blood vessels branch and rejoin to ensure redundancy. Plant roots spread through soil with the same fractal branching as neural dendrites and fungal hyphae. River networks, lightning, even cracks in dried mud follow similar patterns because they're all solving the same underlying math problem: how to efficiently cover space while minimizing total path length. Eyes evolved independently at least 40 times across different species. Flight emerged separately in insects, birds, bats, and pterosaurs. When a solution works, evolution finds it repeatedly. Networks are evolution's solution to complexity. As systems grow larger and environments grow more uncertain, centralized control becomes a bottleneck. Distributed control allows local adaptation while maintaining system-wide coordination through connectivity. Artificial neural networks and machine learning borrowed brain architecture. Layers of simple units with adjustable connection weights that learn by updating those weights based on feedback. Researchers are now looking at mycelium and ecological networks for inspiration on building more resilient computing systems. Nature has been running these experiments for hundreds of millions of years. We're just starting to read the results. Your sense of self isn't housed in a single brain region. It emerges from interactions between networks, especially the default mode network, but also memory systems, emotional processing areas, and sensory integration zones. You are not one thing. You're a moving average of many patterns, a collection of habits, memories, reactions, and narratives that got wired together through repetition. Repeated thoughts strengthen the pathways that produce them, which is why anxiety spirals and depressive rumination are so sticky. You're not choosing to think those thoughts. You've just worn those neural paths so smooth that activation slides down them automatically. Therapy and deliberate practice work by carving alternative routes through the landscape, slowly making new thoughts as accessible as the old ones. Psychological rigidity shows up as over-dominant networks. When your default mode network won't shut off, you get stuck in self-referential loops, ruminating instead of engaging. When your brain loses the flexibility to shift between task-positive networks, rest networks, and salience detection, you lose the ability to adapt to changing contexts. Mental health correlates strongly with network flexibility. How easily your brain can reconfigure itself based on what the situation demands. You're also a node in larger networks. Your thoughts and actions ripple through social connections. Information, behaviors, and ideas spread through human populations following the same mathematical patterns as disease outbreaks and forest fires. Individual trees wouldn't survive long without fungal networks connecting them to the forest. Individual humans wouldn't develop language, culture, or complex thought without being embedded in social networks. Walk through a forest and you're walking on top of a thinking pattern. Pause and reflect, and that same pattern is running inside your head. Different matter, same logic. The most important systems in your life are invisible. You navigate them without seeing them, but they determine what feels possible and what feels out of reach. Once you notice the pattern, it's everywhere. City lights from an airplane look like neural firings. Circuit boards echo root systems. Social media graphs mirror mycorrhizal networks. It's all the same blueprint. Many simple parts, richly connected, with intelligence emerging from their coordination rather than residing in any single piece.